Okay, this is a quick video walking around the car. I've got the hood on. Basically what I did is I took the C5 Corvette hinge for the hood, and it's half of this assembly here. The outer half, the bracket that actually attaches there, is actually a factory 5-piece, and then the inner hinge part, that's actually from the Corvette. The struts are attached here on the side of the aluminum, and they go up to the hood, and they attach right there. There's actually a reinforced aluminum piece under that fiberglass, and the ball for that attachment is actually facing on the inboard side, which the instructions won't tell you, but I found a picture that showed that. On this car, basically when I lower it, I have relatively close alignment on the left side, and on this actual body, this portion here is actually curved. It's rounded like that, whereas the opposite side is actually straight. There's quite a bit of a difference. I'm going to have to play with the gap on the fronts of the tires. This is actually a little bit aft. I can adjust it. You can see the arrows there. Actually, I'll come forward by adjusting that hood hinge, and I'll get it close. And once I get it as close as I can mechanically, then what I'll do is go back in and fill in with glass in some of the corners and things like that. Right here, it actually is being held up by the fiberglass and the bad shape on this side of the car. This part of the body actually points out compared to the other side. So this is straight, and it's actually headed out in, to that direction when you look at it, whereas the other one's rounded. This one's going that way. And so what I'm going to have to do is I'm actually going to have to figure out a way to probably cut this and pull that in order to get that to conform a little bit better and line up like the opposite side. Main thing is having the spacing on the wheels the same. You can see on this side I'm pretty much in line with the wheel, and on the other side it's about the same, so I'm pretty much in line with the wheel here as well. So I'll have to play with that a little bit. On the back end, I've got the alignment pretty well straightened out, so I've got, this wasn't too hard. I was able to space the body so that the side of the car is exactly flush with the side of the wheel, which is pretty tricky from the get-go, because what you have to do is you have to get the wheels, and these don't have any spacers in them, but the wheels bolt directly up to the hub for the Corvette, and that eliminates the factory 5 spacers. It's a little bit better that way. And the trick is getting the back spacing on the wheels. So what I did is I laid that out in AutoCAD, and I did the calculations and used kind of an average of what I did mathematically, and then looked at what the guys had out there to find a sweet spot. And I think I ended up with like 35 millimeters, a pretty low number for the back spacing on these, and it worked out perfect. You can see it's almost exactly flush with the side of the car, looking that way. Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm lining up the back end here. This is what I'm working on right now. The lines that you see on the car are reference points, so that when I put this piece, this is the hatch, this will actually lay back down on the car, and then there will be a piece of glass, and as you can see, all these little marks will line up like that. And so I have the basic shape, and I'll have to go and fine-tune this by sanding the edges a little bit and kind of fitting it custom. The main thing is I wanted to get the hinges in place. Here are the hinges built up, and so I'm going to take this rear hatch, and I'm going to finish actually installing the rib nut inserts that actually go into these holes right here. These are pretty big holes. I think these were drilled at 3/8 and then reamed to 385. So that's a big hole. But the inserts that go in there will be these guys right here. So as you can see, they're pretty good size, 1/4 inserts, and then I've got a number of various pan head screws that they tell you to use. I went to Lowe's and actually bought some at the right grip length. And I also didn't have enough of the other ones, so I'll play around with that. A little bit extra hardware to play around with. And that's it. Another big thing on the rear end that you want to maybe think about doing is, you know, guys play a lot with this spacing back here, so it's a little bit left, a little bit right, and they try to get the exhaust centered, and they also are trying to center this whole rear end over the wheels. And as they're doing that, they're fighting the way that the frame actually engages the body. So as you see around the roll bar here, and also along the door where the frame is over there, you're kind of limited to where you can put the frame, and so you have certain points that are hard points that just don't move, and so you want to find out where those are. And you know, normally you can work with what you got. Some guys have had to actually cut the roll bar in various places to reposition it, but I don't think that's common. I can see clearly that there's some areas that I'm going to have to make up with some pretty substantial body work. Like here, you know, this is a total misfit, but you know, in order to get everything straight, centered over the wheels, I'm going to have to come back and actually modify all this to fit right. So not uncommon for this car. The big thing, anyway, back here to the back, I was talking about spacing it in between. What I did is I actually built up a mount. You can see here there's actually shock absorber mounts that are off the top of shock absorbers. They're just rubber bumpers basically with a hole through them. And so what I did is I used a series of washers and nuts and a big L angle up here so that I could soft mount or shock absorb the rear mount on the car. And then what I could do is I could actually adjust it. So I can adjust this side, I can tighten this side down and squeeze the you know, squeeze that bushing and drop this side down slightly, or the opposite side. I can play around with that. So I get it close, I attach that, and then once I get all this stuff kind of set up to where I know I've got it within the limitations and the adjustments that are possible based on the frame limitations and the various issues that you run into, then I'll move on to the bodywork and start, you know, adding fiberglass and doing some of the harder work to make all this stuff fit. There's gaps that you got to fill in. There's lines on the card that aren't straight. I have a big bow in the upper hatch area, which is right under here, that's going to have to be filled in. And so, you know, you're pretty much committed to diving into the fiberglass anyway. So you might as well just get the body on, fit it the best you can, fit the hatch on, fit the nose on, you know, put the doors on, see where everything ends up, and then see if you have any frame issues that you need to address before you get too far into the fiberglass. Once all that stuff's fitted, then it's just a matter of going back and working each piece until you have it the way you want it. So there you go. A quick walk around on some of the body work. I'm happy I got my rear wheels centered, and my front wheels, I think I got plenty of room to play around up there. I'll have to do some rework, but it looks like it'll come together pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and use my rib nut puller here and start putting these rib nuts in. And oh, by the way, you guys probably saw this box over here. All the sanding that I do and everything is done pretty much here in the garage, and you know, I try to keep things clean. And so I've got this box that basically what I did is I put a squirrel cage blower, which is actually under here. It's a squirrel blower for an AC unit out of a house, and each one of these tubes is 6-inch, and those come into here, and all the sanding dust and, you know, even all those drill shavings and all that stuff literally gets sucked through these tubes and into this box. These are air conditioning filters that are in here. This is for painting, fiberglassing, all that kind of stuff. I actually can prop this thing up with just a little bit of a gap. I'll turn it on. I'll show you how this thing works. So right now it's very quiet. So that's that's going full blast, and you can hardly even hear it. Right now there's so much suction that I could barely open this, but when I do, it just sucks. It sucks all the fumes right in there. Or when I close it, it actually sucks all the fumes through the tubes. And there's more suction out of one of these than a regular shop vacuum. So there's all kinds of flow. I know you don't hear it, but this will suck all the dust out of the air and prevent you from getting a mess all over your garage. This is just kind of an after filter just to catch, like once in a while if I bang on it, some of the junk in there flies out, and that prevents it from coming out. It's kind of like a last stage filter. Anyway, all that stuff, that's just some basic sheet metal, plenums from air conditioning units, particle wood, and a couple of handles and some wheels so I can roll it around, and then I hooked up a regular power cord. So this thing is probably the best thing you can have for working all the fiberglass in your garage and not having to clean everything up all the time. So anyway, there you go. Good talking to you, and we'll talk to you later.